Hey there, welcome to Takeaway with Sam Oches, a podcast from Nation's Restaurant News. I am Sam Oches, editor-in-chief here at NRN, and this is the show where I give you an all-access pass to the restaurant industry's most influential decision makers. Today, I'm joining you from NRN headquarters in New York City, where our team is busy planning for what is sure to be an exciting 2024. On this episode, I'm talking with Rian McCartan. He is the CEO of the drive-thru only soda fountain brand Swig. This Utah-based concept has 59 locations in 7 states and hundreds more in the pipeline. And it is preparing to conquer the U.S. as essentially a category of one. That's right, Swig is built around a core product, sodas blended with creams, purees, and other ingredients, plus water and energy beverages, that it's really in a league of its own at a multi-unit level. Ryan joined the podcast to talk about how the brand plans to capitalize on essentially an infinite runway and how it manages to do the unthinkable, work with both of the soda titans, Coca-Cola and Pepsi. In this conversation, you will learn more about how you can be highly technical and highly personable at the same time, why scarcity marketing can be a successful growth strategy, and how by tapping into customers' emotional relationship to products, you build trust and show those customers that you're listening to them. Jumping now into my interview with Swig CEO Rian McCartan. Also, don't forget to stick around after the interview as I will share my 5 takeaways from this discussion, actionable insights that you can take with you on the go. Okay, I'm here with Rian McCartan, the CEO of Swig. Rian, thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Sam.
All right, so we're going to get into all of the fun things about Swig, and I really mean that as fun because this is a fun brand. I mean, this brand is unlike anything the industry has seen before or currently, and you guys are blazing this incredible trail, and it's going very, very well for you. But you are fairly new to Swig, and so I want to start with you and the opportunity with Swig. You're less than a year still, right? Or is it about a year that you've been with?
No, 14 months actually. But in Swig years, that's like 14 years.
That's right. You feel like a veteran. So you've been here for about a year. What was your impression when you came into this brand? You were recruited to lead this sort of next phase of growth. What was your impression kind of from the outside looking in?
Yeah, I'd never really seen or heard of custom soda or custom beverages and the likes of soda before. So really digging into the category itself just created an immense amount of excitement around the white space that was available to Swig. And coming from, both emerging brands and startup brands, but also very well-established brands in my career, it was very unique in the respect that it was so new and fresh and really just had runway for days. That's what really got me excited about that. And then, I think the cult-like following and the consumer sentiment around Swig, both from the team and the customer standpoint, really was just so unique. And we've continued to kind of carry that forward as we've grown this year. But those were the leading attractors for me.
Sure. So you take leadership of this brand. What was the mandate that you had from leadership for what they wanted you to be able to accomplish with this brand?
Yeah, I think anytime you're going to scale, emerging brands going from 20 to 200 or 50 to 500, which has kind of been my specialty in my career, I think it's easy to lose your way and lose authenticity. And I think, coming into Swig, kind of the non-negotiable was we know who we are. We know where we've come from. It's a 13-year-old organization. And I think people still call us a startup or an emerging brand. And really, we've been around for longer than a decade. And keeping the secret sauce or the recipe of Swig's culture and service levels alive is really the bloodline of the brand. And what Nicole and Chase and Dylan and the Savory team have created over the course of the last decade is, makes my job so much more fun and easier coming into a foundation that is essentially built and really just ready for scale. So, small tweaks to support the business to go from, 50 to 500, turning on additional sales channels, but really ensuring that we're looking back and remembering where we came from and our roots and keeping the Swig bloodline, pure.
Yeah. Well, and I guess to take a step back, because I think of Swig, of course,
primarily Western presence in the Western states, coming out of Utah originally. For
Sure.
those of us on the East Coast, I have not had the pleasure of having a Swig experience, and I'm guessing a lot of people who are listening, same thing.
Yeah.
So to take a step back, tell us about sort of the DNA of this concept, and what is it that makes this brand so unique? What are those components?
Sure. Yeah. And just to also kind of emphasize my own background, I'm from the West Coast. So this was definitely an intermountain, Rocky Mountain concept that, growing up in the Pacific Northwest, not drinking a lot of soda, and then into, Northern California and Southern California, where it was more about, juices and coffee. It was a new concept, fairly new concept to myself as well. We really have expanded the assortment over the years to encompass so much more than soda. But at our roots, we take your favorite soda, we combine it with, fresh purees, syrups, fresh fruit, and I think really taking kind of a coffee concept or a tea concept and bringing it to America's traditional soda, Coke, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, Mountain Dew. And then we also offer, our Reviver, which is our own white labeled energy drink, which has been extremely successful since we launched it a couple of years ago. And then we have more healthy, sugar-free offerings as well, water-based drinks. I think that was one of the bigger misconceptions with some of the press we've had, and some of our first, customers' initial responses were a very sugary, sweets-driven concept and organization, where we actually do quite a bit of business in our refreshers, which are water-based drinks. I have 2 kids, don't always want them hopped up on, caffeine and sugar at 9, 10 in the morning. And I think that's really where we offer something for a pretty broad range of consumers. We introduced the mini cookie about a year and a half ago, went pretty viral, took, your traditional cookie and basically made it smaller. And then that really blossomed into our LTO business that we have today. And we've launched, I think, 18 different, mini cookie or standard cookie sizes over the course of the last year and a half. And that has really allowed our customers to get a deeper sense for Swig as a creative brand, and allows us to have fun and bring out seasonal items that, spark joy and new flavors and ingredients that are maybe a little, not something you see every day on the market.
Yeah, sure. Well, and also operationally speaking, you guys primarily focus on drive-through only locations. Is that right?
Yes, no, that's 100% correct. I mean, we just opened our 59th store, Saturday, and we opened two in one day. So
Wow.
Nampa, Idaho, and then Centerville, Utah. So 58 and 59. All 59 of our locations are drive-through, and every franchise store that are coming online now and into the future will be drive-through. We have tested that model. We have, I shouldn't say all. We have one in line in a grocery store that kicks off, decent sales, but in the grand scheme of our our Swig drive-through culture is the drive-through. I mean, we've leaned into tech and AI and really, like many brands, tried to bring efficiencies to our operations. But at the end of the day, we're a community-based organization. We are a person-to-person organization. So I don't see a world anytime soon where we'll remove that human interaction from the lines. And contrary to what many people think, I mean, our C-suite, including our founder, Nicole, I mean, we come to every single opening. We still take drink orders in the line in the snow. That was this last week in Utah and in Idaho. Part of that is who we are as Swig. And ultimately, that customer-facing interaction is what built the company to what it is today.
Sure. So thinking about this as a beverage forward concept, this is drive-through only. So if I'm putting these ingredients together, I'm thinking you must do great business in sort of in between day parts. You must do great snack business. I mean, I imagine you must do great morning business, people coming for caffeine. But what is that sort of sweet spot? No pun intended. But what is that? What is that?
Yeah.
You're aiming for? Who's your core demographic?
Sure. I mean, we're fortunate enough, we kind of capture a unique consumer base in the younger to, I would say, 16 to 45-year-old female. It's typically a mom. And that translates into a pretty robust business between the hours of 2:30 in the afternoon and 4 in the afternoon. Typically, folks getting off of work, picking kids up from school, going to soccer practice or yoga. We definitely serve many a suburban full of kids and dogs but that's not to say, we're not a family brand. I mean, we have a very diverse customer base. We've been able to prove concept, far outside of Utah where we started. We're now in 7 states, and actually our highest performing locations are in Arizona, and of all places, Rogers, Arkansas. So I think, we have, since kind of proven that this is not just a Intermountain Salt Lake City experience, and we've now replicated that along the Southwest. I do think there's something to say about opening stores in warmer weather and warmer climates. We definitely see trends adjust with seasonality, but we're talking single digit, nothing dramatic, and you'll see as we start to open more and more of the initial 500 franchise stores, most of those will be in the Sun Belt, in the Southeast, and in warmer climates.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, yeah, when you think about this concept, the opportunity seems limitless because you think everybody drinks beverages. Soda is a near universal beverage, and there is nothing like it. I mean, there's really nothing that is out there allowing you to customize your soda beverages or anything like that. But then you combine that with this. I imagine it's a lot easier to find sites to plop your restaurant in because your space requirements aren't so difficult, right? I mean, this seems like the opportunity could be limitless for you.
You would think that. I think, COVID really changed the business in so many ways. And where drive-through restaurants pre-2020 were probably not a thing of the past, but not the most attractive commercial real estate in the F&B industry, right? And it really was secured for fast food and far less fast casual. And with the onset of COVID, everybody's entering into the drive-through world now.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it is beverage or food, I would say that supply is far more constrained on commercial real estate today in drive-throughs than it was 3 years ago. That being said, the beautiful thing about Swig, and you hit it on the head, is we can fit on a postage stamp of land.
Mm-hmm.
So we are pretty opportunistic when it comes to finding sites. We do a lot of our own preferred development, and being able to put a 650, 700 square foot Swig on a third of an acre is pretty tough for anybody else to do. And I don't know if I'm sure you have, Sam, seen our lines, but when we open and ongoing, our lines are sometimes 60, 80, 100 cars deep, and then ongoing, 20, 30 on average. So these parcels still have to support great stacking, strong throughput, and it gets tricky, but we've been able to fill a pretty robust pipeline for the next several years. And landlords and developers love us. We bring that kind of unique demographic to their centers that a lot of their other concepts, whether it's retail or F&B, don't offer. And now that we've been doing a lot of our own preferred development in the last year, we've proven out, that we can be on third of an acre parcels, or we can take 1,800 square foot in caps kind of across the country.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and by the way, I do encourage anybody listening to go follow you on Instagram, follow the brand on Instagram to see those lines you mentioned. You guys tend to get like this great like drone footage of the lines wrapping around the block. It's really incredible to see. Although it might make you jealous if you're a fellow restaurant operator. So I imagine you must be competing with a lot of these coffee concepts for locations. Because I mean, what Swig's rise really makes me think of is this Dutch Bros and Scooters and Seven Brew and these drive-through only coffee concepts, but simultaneously you guys aren't really truly competitors, right? Because you guys offer a different kind of beverage experience.
Yeah, I'm a big believer too that the rising tide lifts all ships. I grew up in the Willamette Valley in Oregon. My parents have a ranch in Southern Oregon in Grants Pass where Dutch Brothers was born. I've been going to Dutch Brothers my entire life. Very loyal customer, and I root those guys on, and that leadership team is exceptional. I think my philosophy has always been with our team and in our strategy is, do a few things very, very well and set yourself apart. We don't look behind our shoulder too frequently. I know there's been some recent concepts that have popped up and tests that are really, we're going to be watching closely and to understand, if soda becomes a larger section of folks' menu. I've seen it with Seven Brews. We see Dutch entering into certain respects of that, but we've tried coffee. It was pre my time. I love that we don't serve coffee. I think it allows us to stay really focused and stay incredibly true to who we are, our customer, and do that exceptionally well. We don't have a massive menu. We don't, we make it seamless and easy for you to order, and the experience very fun and enjoyable. And I think that the simplicity of our model, blended with the excitement of new LTOs on a pretty regular basis, allows the brand to just hum along quite nicely. That, and we do believe that you can have too much of something, and our marketing strategy is pretty rooted in scarcity marketing.
Mm-hmm.
We like to be special. We don't foresee us having a Swig, in a 1 mile radius of another Swig, kind of like the Starbucks model. And we're very tactical about where we go, how we enter into a market, and who our consumer is. Do I think Swig will be coast to coast with thousands of units in the next 5 to 10 years? Without a doubt. But I think we also know, again, where we came from and who we're serving, and we're not for everybody. And I think staying really true to that is important to the authenticity of Swig.
Sure, absolutely. All right, so I want to get into something that has kind of nagged at me ever since I learned about Swig, which is you have both Coke and Pepsi, and you don't have to share your secrets, but
not easy.
Yeah, right. Now, but what I bring up though is, of course, in the soda world, I mean, Coca-Cola and PepsiCo, two giants in soda. So first off, you're dealing with both those companies, which is very unique. But the second thing, related to this is when it comes to innovation, specifically in your dirty sodas, that's working with a retail product as a foundation. And so that's different than most restaurant and beverage concepts, which are starting from scratch. You guys are kind of working off a foundation of an existing product. So I'm curious as to what innovation looks like that, and whether or not you guys involve those companies in this innovation process.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I would just look at the amount of seasonal flavors that Coke, Pepsi put out, specifically in their Mountain Dew category.
Mm-hmm.
I think that answers a lot of where the business is growing categorically with those two organizations. And we, our LTOs, whether it's soda based or Reviver based, are really based around quality and consumer sentiment. So we have a lot of consumer testing. We do testing internally quite a bit. Our R&D team, is an exceptional group of folks that are constantly trying to bring unique items to market. Honestly, some of our LTOs have been since white labeled and put into Coke and Pepsi branded cans and bottles, and and honestly, we look at that as flattering. Coke and Pepsi have been tremendous partners for years. We are one of the very, very few that put them side by side. Our ability to get pretty strong economies with both of those businesses based on our throughput lends us to lean on them when whether it's for data on soda consumption and expanding nationally, or flavor sentiment, that their own testing that they do. They've been incredible from a data science standpoint, and likewise we want to encourage healthy partnerships with them. Without Dr. Pepper, Pepsi, Coke, this business looks a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
I think is there ever a time when a Coke or Mountain Dew based drink or a Pepsi based drink is no longer the 50 or greater percent based, on our menu? I'm not quite sure. I mean, we see Reviver growing exponentially, quarter over quarter. It's one of the largest categories in Dutch Brothers assortment, their energy drink. And then, I do think as we expand into markets beyond the Southeast and Intermountain West, I do think flavor profiles change. I, am from the West Coast. I can tell you, Pepsi is the predominant cola of choice on the West Coast in most cases, where Coke, is the Southeast. And there are these swings in providers where when you go into different locations, and we also foresee, it was like when we went into Texas, I mean, our Dr. Pepper shot up like fivefold, and we had a strong Dr. Pepper business before, but the folks in Texas love their Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
So I think we've learned a lot. We'll continue to learn a lot. We have no anticipation of, consolidating our soda vendors or partnerships into one. They have been great folks to work with, and will continue to thrive together.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating how soda is such a cultural flashpoint. I mean, I'm from the Midwest, and so I of course grew up calling it pop. I moved to the South and started calling it soda. I know there are parts of the country you go and they just call it Coke, no matter what it is. Yeah, I mean, people have opinions on it, right? But I have to imagine too. You mentioned, that's flattering on your flavors ending up in their cans, but I have to imagine it's the reverse too, where I mean, what you guys are doing is also paving the way to what could potentially be a new era for soda. I mean, I'm speaking for myself. I'm not a big soda drinker anymore. If I do, maybe a Diet Coke here and there. But in general, when I was a teenager, I drank too much of it. And so then I just had to get healthy and not drink, too much of it. But, and again, I don't have a Swig within, I think, 500 miles of me, but I would bet you anything. If there was one, I would seek it out, because I also know that, that afternoon indulgence is something I do crave. And so I guess the point of that is to say you are a novelty in the best possible way, not in a negative, connotation of that word. And it's so new that the soda companies must be excited about what you guys are doing, right?
Yeah, I think when I look at Swig or I look at soda in general, I look at it as less as a novelty and more as, people will always want a beverage. We had the big cupcake craze, a decade ago. Cupcakes went up and down. Cookies are on, the rise, as you know, and are probably going to level out at some point. Those in times of economic, whether it's headwinds or tailwinds, those stay, fairly relative to what the market is demanding. At the end of the day, you need to drink liquid, whether it's soda-based liquid, whether it is water or Reviver or wine or what have you. I think that the uniqueness of the Starbucks and the Dutch Brothers and the Swigs of the world is really that, we're a beverage company, and our beverage assortment will continue to evolve. I don't think it will always be soda, but I agree. I think this is a unique time for soda. I grew up drinking Shasta in the Pacific Northwest, and you don't see that too often anymore. And I think that in a time where we really capture this very young audience, right? This kind of 16 to 22 TikTok, Instagram, very committed younger female. And to see the younger generation, really kick in with custom beverages, whether even if it is, people making their own mixed coffee or dirty sodas at home, which there's a whole craze to follow on TikTok if you're interested, is really telling to see what kind of the next generation will bring. I think it skipped my generation a little bit, and I think it's making a pretty strong revival back. So, I think Pepsi and Coke will always be fundamental brands and heritage brands in the United States and globally. Coke's not going anywhere. Pepsi's not going anywhere. And I think, the magic of Swig is taking these iconic brands and these iconic flavors and making them unique, making them relevant again, making them, sugar-free, caffeine-free, and adding, cream, adding flavors, adding fresh fruit. It's really, you lose the Coke sometimes. You lose the
Right.
Dr. Pepper when you have a Swig. So it's definitely unique, and I think there's, again, a lot of white space left.
All right. So considering all of that, as you guys grow, you are moving into these new markets, into these new territories.
Sure.
What does that look like when you enter a new market, when you enter Arkansas and, they're used to Coke and Pepsi, at the typical chain restaurants. And here is this new thing. What does Swig do to try to really plant roots in a community and educate the local customers? Here is exactly what we are here to accomplish for you.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what we can be for you.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Entering new markets is always challenging, but it's exciting to introduce Swig, our unique offerings to new communities. We leverage a mix of local and digital marketing strategies to build brand awareness. That includes, we engage with local schools, hospitals, churches, different community partnerships, and pretty heavy on social media campaigns, whether it be, TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. But we also really emphasize the unique experience of Swig. The fact of the matter is you can go to a local grocery store, buy a bottle of Coke, buy some vanilla creamer and some Torani syrup, and you can make a dirty soda. But what makes Swig different is the Swig experience. It's the minute and a half to 2 minutes in line. It's the conversation with our Swigsters in the store. It's the branding. It's the cup. It's the styrofoam cup. I think there are aspects to the Swig experience that are just unique to really only us. Operationally, when we go into a new market, we're very acute in our real estate development strategy, and we really like to follow a hub and spoke model when entering into any new geo. So adding a minimum of 3 locations to any one territory is pretty critical to us. It allows us to build a deeper, stronger bench, supports growth, and kind of creates that sales halo effect to the surrounding locations. We've seen this in every state that we've gone into, and I think we're, without giving away too much, we're very fortunate to have a very robust and highly intelligent marketing team that I envy, and our CMO Dylan he's a magician, but he walks the imagination. But we definitely do a lot of pre-work going into a new market, and then prior to a soft opening, we do quite a bit of social media push, and our CPAs are very low. If I told you, you wouldn't believe me, so I'm not even going to share it with you. But we just have this cult-like following. We understand our consumer. We do a lot of our customer profile matches, in different territories. And when we turn on new locations, we have a pretty high success rate. And like I said, if you see those lines, Rogers, Arkansas, though, I will tell you, when we opened that, nobody was expecting that to be the number one in the chain. I had never been to Rogers or actually anywhere in Arkansas. One of the few states in the system I've yet to visit. And that has just continued to blow our minds. So sometimes we're pleasantly surprised, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
But, the hub and spoke aspect is really critical to the operational side and the talent side of building Swig.
Well, I imagine too. I mean, I think about, again, soda, going back to kind of what we were talking about earlier. I mean, there's such a, I feel like you must have to appeal to the emotion so much, right? Because soda is such an emotional thing for people. It's such a nostalgic product that a lot of what you must do to connect with customers is to appeal to that emotional component, right? I mean, as we speak, I just watched the latest episode of Saturday Night Live, and even that there was a skit where they were making fun of this co-branded Olay and Dr. Pepper cream, or I'm sorry, Diet Coke cream. And I mean, it's hilarious to think about, because it's like, of course, it's playing with that sort of cliche of, well, let's face it, white
Sure.
women and Diet Coke, right? But
Right.
it's such a, again, sort of an emotional relationship people have with their preferred soda. So all of that to
Yes.
ask, how do you, in these introductions to markets, in your marketing, connect to that emotional part?
Yeah. Honestly, a lot of it goes back to our relationship with Coke and Pepsi. So we get the consumption data. We understand where, certain sodas in our assortment, over and under index across the country. I would also say, we're open-minded we always try to save 15 to 20% of our menu for localization. So when we went into Texas, we were not selling tea by any stretch of the imagination. We were not going to be a tea company. We went into Texas and we were quickly notified that we should be selling tea. Our customers were very vocal that they wanted some level of sweet tea and non-sweet tea. And, tea is sub 1% of our business. But now we have tea in Texas and we make sure that it's there. So, there are exceptions to certain things that we do in geographies that have an intimate connection with a certain soda or a certain base beverage that we'll put on the menu. And, I think as we're growing, we're finding more and more reasons and, abilities to connect at a more localized level. It's hard to do when you're a 60 store chain and about to be a multi-100 store chain. Localizing at that level is tricky and adds operational complexity and menu complexity and supply chain complexity that most people don't envy. But it creates an intimate and very personal and authentic connection with a region, and it allows customers to feel like you're listening to them. And, whether it's branded merch or it's a cookie or it's a beverage, we have a lot more in the pipeline to support local schools, universities, mascots. I think that, there's a lot of opportunity when it comes to bringing localized products and LTOs to the lineup for sure.
All right. So as you have alluded to, you guys have hundreds of locations in the pipeline. You have chosen to franchise to expand this concept, which makes a lot of sense because it just seems, tailor-made for the franchise model. But I guess to start off with, why is franchising such a good fit for the Swig brand? Why was this the model you guys chose to go with?
Yeah, I would first say that it's a blended model. It's a hybrid model. My expertise is really in corporate growth and corporate scale. In my past life, doing 50, 80, 100 corporate stores a year. So franchising is a way for us to go faster, and speed to market is important to any, emerging brand. And I think for us, we had been asked for years. I mean, Nicole has been fielding and Andrew have been fielding requests to franchise for a decade. And really, similarly to how we approach the business and, in multiple aspects of our businesses, we really wanted to be ready and we really wanted to be in the top decile of franchisors. So if we're going to do something, we wanted to do it right. And we have committed a lot of resources, a lot of time, a lot of development in the last couple of years to really set a strong foundation for Swig's franchise program so that we can be a franchisor of choice. Our team is very, very committed to leaning in and really supporting franchisees as an equal. I talk to a lot of franchise partners across many different brands that have come to franchise Swig, and we hear different mixed emotions on franchise partners. We hear headwinds. We hear the good, bad, and the ugly. Let's just put it that way. And so our approach has always been from day one and will continue to be, how can we best support, listen, be good partners, and ultimately win together with our franchisees? And by taking that approach, which is not a silent one, we've been able to really build partnerships with folks that instead of taking down 1, 2, or 3 units each, they're taking down 15, 20, 40 units each. And these are pretty sophisticated, well-capitalized, strong operating partners that are really excited about Swig. So, it seemed to be the natural next step for the business. We've opened 8 to 12 corporate stores every year, probably for the last decade or so. And last year we opened um, uh, 12 stores. This year we'll open around 17 locations, and next year we'll open 25 on the corporate side. So we're not slowing down on the corporate side of things. I think we see a white space opportunity across the country. We had, when we publicly announced franchising to the wild or to the ecosystem, we had 1,450 inbound requests in the first 30 days. And so we haven't spent a penny on marketing our franchise program. On the contrary, I'm the one at the board meetings asking us to, okay, we're stopping at 500. So I think we will have thousands in the system. We want to do these in tranches to ensure everyone's success, everyone is a winner, and to ensure that we're learning from each other and that we're really putting the best program to market we possibly can.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, imagine, again, considering everything we've talked about with the model you guys have, I imagine, this is minimal CapEx. It's, the real estate might be a little bit more open than if you were putting big boxes into communities. I imagine if you wanted to, you'd be able to move very quickly, right? That with the right, capitalized franchise partner, they might be able to move very quickly. So do you have to kind of balance that, I guess, without to not let it get too out of control?
Yeah. We're a really unique balance of a team. I think I am hair on fire fast. My partner Andrew, he's also hair on fire fast, and I think we have a good balance on the C-suite of, very strategic, thoughtful levels of speed when it comes to our growth. Could Swig go and put 40 corporate units into the system next year, both from a capital and an operational sense? Yes, we could. Are we choosing to do 20 to 25? Yes. More so because we want to make sure that the 50 to 60 franchise locations that are turning on next year are 100% 60 for 60 wildly successful.
Yeah.
And so we are shifting our bandwidth and our scope a little bit to ensure that ramp, that initial ramp of 60 on the franchise side, are winners for both our franchisees and for the organization and the brand. I always look at it as my foot's always floored on the gas, but I tap the brakes, and I think that's really how I like to describe it to our franchise partners. Get your initial 2 to 3 open. I think that 2 to 3 mark in the first year is really critical. Again, for that hub and spoke model, you get economies of scale, you get operational efficiencies in the supply chain. You get a halo sales effect across your entire market. And then after that first year is probably a little painful, standing up your first 3. And then beyond that, the cash on cash and the economies that you get really lend to being able to move very, very quickly from, I would say, 4 to 10. Yeah. And we've seen that play out time and time again. And, our AUVs have continued to climb, every single year since inception. This year is honestly, we're breaking all records that we ever thought we would have. And, that's just lending to a more profitable and efficient model. So at the end of the day, I mean, I would love to see them all be like Rogers, Arkansas. Rogers opened trending almost $2 million, which is for a 650 square foot soda concept out of Salt Lake, ain't too shabby. And that franchisee partner had less than $250,000 in CapEx committed to his location.
Wow.
So, that's a top decile example, but it happened to be our first franchise location that stood up. And it's a great story to be able to share and tell, and we are rooting them on. I mean, because it's a win for the brand. It's a win for that community. And, speed is important, especially when you're a category that is, we own this category. There's really nobody even remotely close to us. Mm-hmm. And, never say never. And there's a lot of people that would love to jump into this cookie jar and are at this time. And I think franchising makes a lot of sense to get the word out about Swig.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I want to use a fellow Utah brand as a comparison. Of course, everybody's watching Crumble cookies,
Sure.
and so kind of emphasizing this point of balancing speed. When you essentially own the market, there is incredible franchise demand, and all that white space, as you mentioned. Crumble cookies went from 0 to 1,000 locations in 6 years. You guys are going with a much more tempered, disciplined pace, which I totally understand. But another piece of this sort of momentum is not just like your physical expansion, but also sort of the building of the momentum from a brand perspective. Again, I kind of
Yeah.
want to compare it to Crumble, where they became such a cultural fascination that they've taken over sort of the cookie debate, right? I mean, and much like you had this big New York Times feature, you Swig and the Dirty Soda had a big New York Times feature talking about. And anyway, I guess the point to bring all this up is to say that you do have to not only control and balance the momentum of building your physical footprint, but you also have to figure out a way to build that momentum of how much are people talking about us? Are people on the other, in the East Coast where they don't even have Swig? Is the momentum building for something special? And I'm wondering how you guys play with that sentiment and how you really kind of sow the seeds of a movement that's really happening with Swig so that you can capitalize on that in the future.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt. I mean, we are very buzzworthy, to use a term right now. And when we open up, it still is pretty mind blowing to me. When we'll work the line, Nicole and I will work the line, and we'll be in Moore, Oklahoma, or we'll be in a tertiary market, fresh to market, and we'll have people that will come through our line that have been waiting for years and have been following us on TikTok or Instagram for years, and know faces that are working. They know Nicole. They've seen PR about me, and they act like family. So I think that there is this halo, so to speak, specifically driven through social media and a lot of the press that we were fortunate enough to get, that has played into the success of our physical locations, but also the success of Swig as a brand. I think we've really leaned in, specifically in the last year or so that I've been here, we've really leaned into community, experience, authenticity, and not leaned out of products or great beverages, great cookies. I mean, we will always be in the top tier for that, but really shifted our focus to creating this Swig culture and this Swig experience that is unlike and unmatched to any other brand in the system. And being able to, I travel a lot, internationally and domestic, and I go into states that I would not even possibly imagine they know Swig, and shame on me. I'm naive to think that not everybody in the world knows Swig, but I travel almost every single week, and I wear this vest quite a bit and other branded Swig clothes, and I can't tell you, Sam, how many people stop me in airports in states that not only do we not have Swig, but are not on the horizon for Swig in the near future. And that kind of leads, back to, your previous question. We are very disciplined. We say no a lot more than we say yes. We could have turned on 1,000, 1,500 franchise units like that in the first 6 months. We chose to turn on 500 of the best. I think Crumble is an exceptional brand. I know that team over there, fortunate enough to have learned quite a bit from them in their journey, and really kind of be as an outsider looking in how that journey has taken place. And I think we're different in some respects. And where Crumble, I think, has been wildly successful is leaned into their community. They've leaned into tech in a pretty massive way. And they have also stayed very authentic to who they are and what makes Crumble special.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're going through a little bit of a rebranding moment right now, and I'm excited for them. I love their product. But it's not easy to say no.
Right.
And it's one of those things where, I don't know if you've read the book Essentialism, but I'm really big on that right now. It is something that we all take very seriously, and we realize what we have is so special, and that we are willing to invest the time and the patience for it to be as large as we want it to be over time. We don't need to be 1,000 units tomorrow.
Right.
And we don't really want to sacrifice the existing foundation that's been built and cherished and honed for the last, decade.
Well, and Ryan, what are some of the these headwinds you've kind of touched on? What are some of these headwinds that might also kind of keep you from getting to that place? But I mean, what do you guys deal with on a day-to-day basis from the headwind perspective?
Yeah, I think I would be silly not to state the obvious. I mean, I think macroeconomic headwinds this year, specifically in the financial markets, have taken its toll on every industry. If you say it hasn't touched your industry, I don't think you're being honest to yourself or to the public. Rates for capital obviously higher, which lead to development costing more. Most franchisees and most small businesses, small to mid-sized businesses, lean on debt to grow their organization. We're fortunately, we don't really in a very massive way. We're a pretty cash liquid organization. We're backed by a very robust family fund and a private equity group that has been just exceptional to work with for years. But staying disciplined during those headwinds, and also, I've been a part of businesses that have ramped very high very quickly and experienced a lot of success in a very short period of time. And I think it's very important to remember when success is all around you and cash flows are good and everything is humming very nicely, that's when it's very easy to make mistakes, to become less disciplined, and and get caught kind of with your pants down, so to speak.
Right.
I would also say, in making I just finalized the budget for 2024 and looking at our growth and our current trajectory, and we are modestly optimistic about next year. I think, facing an election year, I think rates will come down a little bit. I'm not an oracle, so I would be doing a lot of other things if I could tell the future. But I think ultimately, next year is looking bright. We were very opportunistic this year when folks were slowing down. Even some of the competitors that you mentioned a little earlier were pulling out of states like Texas, Oklahoma, Arizona, and we were pressing the gas. So where it was a little bit more expensive for us to develop this year, we were able to take property, be opportunistic on second-gen restaurants and in-cap drive-thrus on new developments, and ink deals for 2024, 2025, and 2026 that really pave a path for strong, disciplined, profitable growth for the business. And I think that, time will tell, but I'm hopeful, and I'm very optimistic in general in life. But I've lived through the retail apocalypse of 2008 to 2010 and many more macroeconomic nightmares that this country has faced. And Swig is literally coming out of the best fiscal year from a KPI, from a top line, from a profitability standpoint that we've ever had in 14. So I'm optimistic about 2024, and I'm so excited to not talk about COVID anymore. Yeah. And I think everybody in the food and beverage and the retail space are putting COVID behind them. They've learned a lot from them. I think COVID forced a level of margin optimization for businesses, and it forced us to be smarter. Yeah. And the strong have survived, and I'm excited to see Swig, as well as other great brands that I follow, continue their success next year.
Absolutely. I'm excited to watch as well. Rian McCartan, the CEO of Swig. Ryan, thanks for taking some time today. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Sam.
That was my interview with Swig CEO Rian McCartan. So what should you learn from this interview? Here are my 5 takeaways. My first takeaway is that the first rule of expansion is to remember your roots. Swig is, of course, in growth mode, and they're really trying to stay true to what made this brand so popular in the first place. As Ryan talked about, he wants Swig to really stay connected to its authenticity. Now if you ask me, sometimes authenticity is kind of an overused term, especially in restaurant marketing. But I really understand what he's getting at when he talks about Swig staying authentic and true to what it really has done now for 13 or 14 years, and that is make great beverage products served with highly personable touch out of drive-through only locations. If you're growing your own brand into new markets, don't lose sight of what got you to be successful in the first place, what brought you here. That's what Ryan's mandate is as CEO of Swig, is to really stick to that, because that's what made them successful. And that's going to be your challenge too as you grow. Stick to what makes you true to yourself, be real and true, and you will be able to stay authentic and connect with new customers in new markets, just as you had in your original market with your original store. My second takeaway is that you can be highly technical and highly personable at the same time. Ryan talked about using lots of technology in their drive-through only operations to be efficient, to keep those drive-through lines humming. Especially when they open, they can have dozens of cars in their car stack through their drive-through. They have to keep that thing turning, and they're turning to more and more technology as they do that. But Ryan talked about the fact that this is still a human operation. He and other leaders still go to new restaurants and serve beverages out the drive-through window themselves when they can. They still want to emphasize the human connection, because this is an emotional business at the end of the day. They don't want to get rid of that human-to-human connection. And so even as you balance technological innovation, remember, you still have to emphasize the human component. My third takeaway is that scarcity marketing can be a successful growth strategy. So what I mean by that is, scarcity, of course, is, the Swig in the new market when it enters, it's the only place you can get those high quality beverage drinks. And they want to continue to use that promise as they open the new markets. This is the only place you can get this product. There's a scarcity to that product. They show the market that, this is, you can't get this everywhere, only here. And I think in a day and age where there's saturation of markets, and when you look at growth, a lot of brands want to flood a market with lots of locations, maybe the Starbucks model, as Ryan mentioned. There can be a benefit to that, but at the same time, if you have them locations really close to each other, you use that ability to promote scarcity of the product, because suddenly that product is everywhere. As you grow, consider how you can, yes, open locations, multiple locations in new markets, but don't put them so close to each other that they cannibalize each other's sales. Try to emphasize to the neighborhood surrounding, the community surrounding, this is the only place you can get this product. And that will help to drive sales, and of course help to give you more and more of a reason to grow. My fourth takeaway is that beverage concepts will always find an audience, but they must be unique and relevant to the market. As Ryan pointed out, people are always going to drink beverages, whether that's water, coffee, soda, whatever it is. People always have to drink something. That's why Swig is able to grow. They're able to grow because soda especially is so popular, and people will always drink soda. But of course, you look at other trends that have come and gone. He mentioned cupcakes, and cookies are a trend, of course, right now. Some of these trends will be kind of a roller coaster. They'll be really popular one day and may come down another day. But the point is in the beverage space, you can't take for granted that people will always drink beverages, because you have to make sure your product is distinct and relevant. So that's what Swig is working on. They're constantly innovating their product mix so that they can ensure that relevance, ensure that they're distinct. But that's why they also see infinite runways, because at the end of the day, people will always drink beverages, and they will especially always drink soda. So if you're in the beverage space or thinking about it, just know that it's relatively trend proof, but that doesn't mean that you can't innovate and can't work on those products to make sure they're distinct and relevant. My fifth and final takeaway is that by tapping into customers' emotional relationship to products, you build trust and show those customers that you're listening to them. Ryan used the example that as they grew into Texas, they discovered that people really wanted sweet tea, and they didn't serve tea, but they added it for those customers, and there's a good reason to do that. Beverages especially, and particularly when it comes to something like tea or soda, customers often drink this every day. This is an important thing for them. And those preferences change, of course, region by region, market by market. And by offering those things that customers love, you show that you're listening to them. You know that this is what they want. You show that you care about them and want to give them what they want. And in that, you build trust with those customers. And in turn, you can then build loyalty with those customers. Those are all my takeaways for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe to Takeaway wherever you listen to podcasts and leave your feedback. You can also email me at sam.oches@informa.com. Thanks again, and talk to you next week.